Ladies and gentlemen, Primetime CP23 here with another Demon Hunter build guide for Diablo 3, Season 10, Patch 2.5. Today we're going to be looking at a Marauders build. Not the normal Marauders build, though. Normally when you're talking about Marauders, you are thinking about grenades. This is not a grenades build. This is a Chakrum build. Chakrum does this. It does a lot of AoE damage. It's a pretty squishy build. We'll get into some ways to make it a little less squishy. Anyway, you look at it, you're looking at probably T10. I just did a T12 rift and I was able to clear it, but it wasn't really that fast. This is not going to be a build for speed farming. This is going to be a pretty early season or second character build guide. If you're looking for a second character and you just happen to come across some of these pieces, then this is a pretty good guide for this is a pretty good build for that. It's pretty good for very early season stuff until you get some better gear, until you get some better items for a better build. So let's start right off with the reason that we are playing this build, the two things that make this build kind of viable. First of all, we have Chakrum, Sword of Ill Will. Chakrum deals 1% increased damage for every point of hatred you have, up to 1.4%. So this is actually the worst rolled one that you can get, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. So that's going to increase the damage for every point of hatred you have. I'm up to 150 points, so that's plus 150% increased damage for Chakrum, in addition to some other huge damage buffs. And Spines of Seething Hatred. Chakrum now generates 4 hatred. Instead of being a spender that costs 10 hatred, it now generates. And that allows for you to use the Aquila Cuirass, so that when you're above 90% primary resource, damage is reduced by 50%. For the jewelry slot in the cube, I have it on Countess Julia's cameo. It literally doesn't really make a difference. Convention of Elements is probably your best bet here, just because it just so that you can deal some extra damage. You are using a couple different types of damage here. Your Sentry is using a cold rune, Vengeance is using a lightning rune, and Chakram is a fire rune, but we'll get into all that here in a minute. So, I mean, Convention of Elements, there are worse things you could have. You will need the full 6-piece Marauders set. So, I mean, I guess you could drop the gloves for like a Mage Fist and then use Convention of Element, and then use Ring of Royal Grandeur with like Mage Fist. See if I can find it real quick and show you what it does, just in case you're not familiar with it. Mage Fist. Fire skills deal 20% increased damage. That's probably not a terrible solution. That's more of a glass cannon approach. And this build is already pretty squishy, so I mean, use that at your own risk. So, like I said, the important thing is to get the 6-piece bonus, because with the 6-piece bonus, you're going to call all companions to your side. So you're going to get bonuses from all the companions. Your sentries are going to deal 400% increased damage, and every time you cast Chakram, all of your sentries cast Chakrum. And then your primary skills, and then Elemental Arrow, Chakrum, Impale, Multi-Shot, Cluster Arrow, Companions, and Vengeance all deal plus 12,000 or 1,200% increased damage for each active sentry. Which brings us to the Bombardier's Rucksack. You can have an additional 2 sentries, so that's up to 5. So my math may be off here, but I think we're looking at, what, plus 6,000 increased damage for Chakrum. Plus, Chakrum is also getting another plus 150% increased damage. I'm not sure if that's additive or multiplicative, but either way it adds up to a crap load of damage. And then we are also using a Stone of Jordan to give us increased fire damage and increased damage against elites. In there we've got a Bane of the Trapped. Then we're using the Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge combo. In this case we've got a Bane of the Stricken and a Bane of the Powerful. So like I said, this is full just damage. I'm doing a lot more damage than what I need to be doing for this level of content. If you want to get a little additional health, a little additional toughness, you could probably swap out Bane of the Stricken for a Esoteric Alteration. You could also swap out Nemesis Bracers for Wraps of Clarity, because that's going to make your Hatred Generators reduce your damage taken for up to 5 seconds. You're going to be casting almost non-stop because it's a generator. So there's no reason to not cast almost non-stop. One important thing of note with the skills is that we are running Vengeance with the Dark Heart rune for damage reduction, but this is not NOT using Dawn in the cube, so you're not gonna have permanent uptime on Vengeance because you would have to have a ridiculous amount of cooldown. So you're, from what I've seen, it looks like you get about half uptime on Vengeance. So you just want to make sure that you save it. If you see an elite pack or there's just a ridiculous amount of density, that's when you pop. That's when you pop Vengeance. So for basically the only thing you're going to use that does damage, you're going to be using Chakrum with the Twin Chakrams rune, so that you throw 2 Chakrams instead of 1. That is a fire rune. And then we're going to be using the Valley of Death rune on Marked for Death. Vault Tumble to just get the hell up out the way. The Polar Station rune on Sentry so that it chills enemies nearby. That's going to activate Cull the Weak. It's going to activate your Bane of the Trapped. That's just the best rune. Plus, it's also very obvious. It's very easy to see where it is. So it's very easy to place new ones. You could use something like Spitfire Turret, but as you can see, it has no aura or anything around it. So to me, it's just harder to see when you're in the rift, when you're, trying to kill things. Plus, this is going to activate your control impairing effect stuff. So that makes Polar Sentry the way to go for May. And then Wolf Companion, it doesn't really matter. You get all of the companions' passive abilities. So it's just choosing which active ability you want. And I want increased damage. I'm going to be using the Ambush, Cull the Weak, Custom Engineering, and Awareness passives. Custom Engineering is going to make it so that basically your sentries do additional damage. And then for paragons, I would say area damage, life per hit, resource cost reduction, resist all life, armor, life regen, and then probably cooldown, crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and attack speed. And then here, it's debatable. You could max out hatred, which is what I've done here, or you could just dump everything into dexterity. The more hatred you have, the more your chakram is going to do damage, but I don't know for positive if that's worth it over just dumping into dexterity. So that's up to you. Oh dear God, I've been yammering for 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and get into a rift. We'll just do a so the important thing is you first come into a rift, make sure that you are hitting as many polar stations as possible. I accidentally just used Vengeance, just off of habit. I mean, you can see how quickly elites are dying. Everything just dies. You're doing so much damage when you have all five sentries out. What I kind of like to do is, as I go, I just recast. I recast a sentry every time I see some enemies. I burn out the enemies real quick and move on about my life. This allows me to know that my sentries are not falling off somewhere in the rift, and it also makes sure that I kill just about everything, which is very important, obviously. So I mean, the damage that you do with the polar stations is not that important, but you do absolutely have to keep all 5 up, because that's a whole lot of damage you're missing out on if you don't have all 5 stations up, just because of the way that the Marauders set works. This is not exactly a speed build. It clears this content pretty easily, but you're not really moving that fast. You're not vaulting around. You get really, really set back if you die, so you have to be a little extra careful, because if you die, you have to recast all of your sentries. You lose your sentries if you die, and you have to recast them. That may not sound like a big deal, but when you're dealing with things that kill you basically in one hit because you are so squishy, it can spiral out of control pretty quick. At the beginning of every level of the rift, you have to recast. It's things like this that make Marauders not as fun to play as it could be. I mean, I've had some fun with this build, but I would definitely not want to, go out of my way to be pushing with this build. This build, I would say, can maybe clear a T10. It definitely will not be fast. I don't think it's really doable to clear a GR70 with this build. I just don't think it's doable. When the Rift Guardian comes up, you just want to recast your sentries and just burn out the Guardian real quick. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to about wrap up this video. I could go back through and do another rift, but I don't really think it's that big a deal. I think it's kind of obvious what this build does and how it does it. Just make sure at the beginning of every rift, as soon as you spawn in, you're just spawning up all of your sentries as soon as you can. And this game is actually on T12, so this will kind of give you an idea of what this build can do. I mean, fact is, you're dealing a crap load of AoE. There's no doubt about that. It's just that you're so squishy, and dying is such a pain in the butt with this build that I don't think it's really viable to go much higher than T10. As you can see, though, I did just clear out this area and kill a key warden on Torment 12. So, ooh, Death's Breaths. I didn't realize. And your stuff keeps firing after you stop firing, so sometimes that will happen. Let's go ahead and take a look at how quick that was. Pretty quick. Yeah, under 4 minutes on a GR45, aka T10. So, I mean, you can do T10 pretty quick on this build. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call that the end of the video. If you liked this build, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you didn't like this build, let me know why. What can I do in future build videos to help you, the viewers? So ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it's Primetime CP23, and I'm out.